Unfortunately, we watched the film over and he probably ended up shooting a good 6 to 8 inches over his back. But hey, that's hunting, and that's the jitters you get when you're pulling the trigger on a big old bear. Right now, we woke up to a nice, close to 3.5 to 4 inches of snow up where we're hunting, and we're getting ready to try to sit down and just start doing some heavy glassing and spot us a good bear. We did cross some tracks coming in this morning on a nice sized bear, had a nice paw on him, but it was later in the night, and so it probably has been a good 6 to 8 hours since those tracks were made. So we're just not going to worry about that, but we know he's down in some of the lower country. But right now we're excited. How you feeling this morning?
Pretty excited.
You feel strong?
Yeah.
He's pumped. We're ready to go after a bear. About 20 after 10, and it's just been a little slow this morning. You know, we really felt like we were going to be seeing some bears moving since it was stormy last night, but you know, maybe they moved around in the night after the storm, and they're just kind of taking some naps still. We did end up seeing a really neat, completely blonde bear, but it was probably only like a yearling cub. He was just kind of goofing around by himself, but he was pretty neat, pretty fun to see. And in the meantime, while we were glassing and walking around in the snow, found a couple sheds. So those are kind of cool. Both right sides, different bull, but kind of neat. So anyway, meantime, we're getting ready to kind of regroup. We're gonna get in another position and get Craig and see if we can just kind of hang out. And the sun's really coming out now. Snow's gonna start melting fast, so maybe the bears will move around a little bit and we'll get a chance to pick one up. We need to find a bear. It's time to do some bear hunting. We're glassing that evening, and eventually we end up spotting 2 boars, and they're up the hill a ways, and they're kind of milling around. You can definitely tell which one was the dominant one, but eventually we just kept watching them and kind of figured out, hey, you know what, doesn't look like they're going to go anywhere tonight, so let's make a plan of how we're going to stalk in the morning in the dark, set up, and hopefully wait to see one of them coming out of its bed or spot it in its nest. Alright, so it's about 20 after 6. We're on the 3rd day of the hunt. Last night when we were pulling out, we were glassing the hillsides, and it really came alive. We were seeing some nice bears moving around, so we're heading in. We're going to try to get in on a couple of boars that we had seen, and hopefully we can catch them out and about still before they take a nap for the day, or we can get them in their beds if they were out late last night. So we're here. We're going to be working hard, fighting some brush, and hopefully we get it done. Let's do it, man.
So we had a pretty good hike in front of us. By the time we got up in there, it was just about the right light. We had a crosswind. We kind of sat down, took a snack, regathered ourselves, and started glassing pretty hard. The glassing took a lot longer than I was hoping for to find a bear. We were looking in an area that we thought he may be or his buddy, but eventually we realized he was in a little lower position than what we had expected. We had sat there for a while, and Chris was really, I'd been dragging him around the mountains, and he had reached a point where he just needed to sit there and close his eyes for a bit. So he was kind of chilling behind us. The cameraman and myself started looking around, and we're glassing pretty hard. We glassed for probably over an hour. Eventually, the wind we had, the crosswind, was starting to go a little bit in a direction we didn't want it to go, but it still seemed to be okay. Pretty soon we realized the cameraman all of a sudden spotted him first, and this dude come up out from below and started milling out through the trees, and he was starting to kind of head out. He knew something was up. So we grabbed Chris really quick, got Chris, set him up on the rock, made sure he felt like he could take a shot. He was giving me the green light that he was good to go. I'm glassing, I'm ranging the bear, and the bear stopped finally. He was starting to head out, but I kind of found that if I bellowed like a calf, that boy, that'll just stop him on a dime. Did it. He eventually stopped. I asked Chris if he had the shot and where he should put it. He said he had it, so he took the shot. Well, unfortunately, you know, again, he had the shakes. And when I went to him and I said, hey, how do you feel? I mean, he's like, I'm shaking pretty bad. But that's, you know, that's the exciting thing about hunting. That's the exciting thing about going big game hunting and hunting for bear. So he takes a shot. Well, we think, hey, he might have hit him because that bear definitely made a move, and it seemed like he had kind of a gimp going off. We watched him. He went out of sight. Yeah. And by the time we had time to kind of watch the video again and hurry up and just decide if it was a hit, we realized that he had missed that bear maybe by an inch. And it had hit right in front of him. Because the bear actually, once we ran the tape back through, what in the moment we didn't realize is even though he was stopped, right when Chris went to pull the trigger, that bear actually started to take a step and start to head out again. And I think Chris might have all of a sudden compensated, thinking he was going to help put the bullet in the right place. Fortunately, again, we had a miss, but hey, that's part of hunting, and especially the first time, you know, it's just learning and going from there. We were ready to go and try to make up for that miss and head on to the next day. So here's where it gets good. We're into the 4th day of our hunt, and we're driving down into some of our country on the ranch, and I spot a bear up off the road, range it, it's a little over 300 yards. Couldn't really tell what size of bear it was, but had a good head on it. And you know, at this point in time, we're just wanting another opportunity to get Craig in on a bear. We look at it, there's a pretty steep climb to get up there and parallel the bear due to the wind. But at first, Craig was like, hey, let's have Chris take it. But I convinced him, this is your time, man. Let's get you up this hill, let's get you set up and get this bear. So I grabbed the gun, I got my pack on, and I tell Craig, hey, you hold my pack, and I'm going to drag you up this hill, and every time you feel me pulling, you take a step, and let's get up this thing together. So it was a teamwork effort. We got up, we set up, I set the gun up, I laid in there as if I was a shooter, and really set it up to where I felt like, hey, this is a good shot to take. Slipped Craig in there, he sat there, we finally saw the bear, we were able to wait for the right opportunity. The bear presented itself, a great broadside shot. This was a 258-yard shot, mind you. But because we had talked through the mistakes that had been made before and how he was more comfortable now, and I made sure that he was set up for success, he squeezed off a perfect shot at 258 yards, broadside, double along this bear, and this dude folded up. Unfortunately, because of the schedule of our cameraman, we didn't have the camera with us at that time. But you know what? It was still one of the best experiences I've ever had with somebody, of what he had the opportunity to experience himself and what we went through to get the bear. And let me tell you, Craig was pretty excited. It was really neat to see just him going through that process. And you know, in the end for him, he realized that, hey, you know, I got a lot of things I want to do still, and I'm going to start pushing myself to do those things. Chris, you know, we ended up, it was time, the 5-day hunt was up, but his folks decided, hey, we really want Chris to get a bear. You know, he's just turned 16. This is a huge deal. and they asked me, DR, can he stay for a few more days and hunt? And I said, hey, let's do it. So Craig headed on home back to southeastern Idaho, and Chris stayed. Him and I, we covered some pretty good ground, but eventually we set ourselves up the evening of the 7th day, and we spotted a bear, and I sat and watched that bear for a while to make sure it was a bear that we wanted to go after and work for, because we had to do some climbing. But it worked out perfect. We ended up going up, getting crosswind of this bear. This bear ended up working down towards us, ended up being a good looking black bear, mature looking boar, and we ended up setting him up roughly at about 170 yards. He set up, laid down, and as this bear finally came out of a thicket, I was able to stop him in his tracks, and he squared up to us and sat right on his rump. There was a perfect white diamond right on his chest. And I told Chris, I said, you see that white spot? And he said, yes. And I said, shoot it. So, I mean, he put it on the money, and I mean, perfectly hitting the top of that diamond, and this bear went all of maybe 10 yards and piled up. By the time we got to him, we realized what we had done, and I'm going to tell you, Chris was pretty excited. And again, he said it was one of the neatest experiences he's had, and it was great to be part of it. And I'd say, you know, for the opportunity to hunt with guys who have never had that big game hunting experience, I'd do it all over again, because I was able to learn a lot, and these guys were able to do something that, you know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience to have that time and moment. So it was a great time here at Seven Devils Lodge and Outfitters. We had a good spring hunt with the bears. We ended up taking 3 great bears, and we're looking forward to do it again this fall.